All right, guys, welcome. Happy Sabbath. We're just coming into Sabbath here now. And we want to study Daniel 9 tonight. Daniel 9, the 70 weeks, but we want to understand it in relation to Daniel 8. So that's my purpose of this study. It's really to bring these two together because I don't believe that many people have a proper understanding of this. I mean, for the most part, most people believe that there's 69 weeks and then Jesus comes, and then the 70th week is going to be at the end of the world. That's the common interpretation. That's the interpretation that was given by Jesuits during the 1500s, and it was brought on to Protestantism, and Protestantism had their eyes turned from the main characters in the Daniel prophecies concerning the papacy. Whether it's Daniel 7, Daniel 8, Daniel 11, all these prophecies point to the papacy. But the devil, he's tried to divert our minds, get us to think of and look to different directions in all these prophecies, and because of that, well, we're confused. There's a lot of confusion around us. So anyways, Daniel 8, Daniel 9, but before we start, if we can just bow our heads in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for being with us here tonight. We just ask you to give us your Holy Spirit, because without your Spirit, we can know nothing, we can do nothing. Your word says that your Spirit will guide us into all truth. And Father, we want all truth. We want to stand on a firm platform of truth. We understand that your church is the pillar and ground of the truth. This is where the truth stands, and we want to stand on a perfect and solid foundation. And we want to build upon a rock. We don't want movable and shifting sands. And Father, I do believe that the 2300-day prophecy, the 70-week prophecy, these things are part of the foundation of our faith. And it's definitely not understood or highly understood by most. So, Father, before we get into this word, we just want to ask you to be with us here tonight. Give me the words to speak. Let the words that I speak be your words, I pray. And I thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so let's just remember a couple things that we've went over already. Most of you have been here for the prophecies and for the studies. But in the book of Isaiah, Isaiah talks about a sealed book in Isaiah 29. And this is something that I mentioned before. The vision of all is become to you as the words of a book that is sealed. Now, in the book of Daniel, Daniel is a sealed book. Daniel's book, Daniel was told, seal up the words, seal up the vision to the time of the end. So the vision of all has become to you as the words of a book that is sealed. Now, there's a vision that Daniel has in Daniel chapter 8. We talked about the vision last week. And some people will deliver it to men, or one that has learned, saying, read this, I pray thee, help me to understand this. And he says, I cannot, for it is sealed. Now, if you don't understand the vision of Daniel 8, you definitely need to take a look at last week's Bible study on Daniel chapter 8 and the 2300 days. That is a vision that we need to understand. We don't want to be of those that say, I cannot explain this. We don't want to be of those. You know why? I want you to read the rest of this. This is what it says. The book is delivered to him that is not learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I am not learned. Wherefore the Lord said, for as much as this people draw near me with their mouth. You hear what God is saying about people who don't know how to explain these visions? These people draw near me with their mouth. With their lips they do honor me, but have removed their heart far from me. And their fear toward me is taught by the precept of men. I've been studying these things for probably 15 to 18 years now. But I will tell you the truth that I could explain the 2300 days within the first 3 months of learning to study the Bible. It was not something that took me years and years and years to be able to explain these things. And not just explaining these things. That doesn't count for just like being able to hear these things. But I was able to explain these things. I was able to explain the 70 weeks prophecy. And it really shocked me. So I think it was about 3 weeks or 5 weeks into my studying that I had understood the 2300 days, and I was going into the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventist Church. And when I went in there, I knew the 70 weeks. I knew the papacy was the whore of Babylon. I knew all the prophecies in Daniel 12 and Daniel 7, Revelation 13, the papacy, the mark of the beast, all that other stuff. And this was in 5 weeks of study, 6 weeks. But when I went in the General Conference Church, I was shocked because they tried to explain the 70 weeks. They were doing a study on the 70 weeks. And they asked this lady, and he goes, so where is the 70 weeks in Bible prophecy, he started to ask her some questions, and she didn't know any of the answers. And he goes, how long have you been an Adventist? And she said, I've been in the church for 15 years. And he says, oh, okay. So 15 years. And that was my first experience in the Seventh-day Adventist church. In 15 years, they did not understand how to explain the 70-week prophecy of Daniel chapter 9. And this shocked me. This shocked me. But now, a little bit of this, I have a deeper understanding of, and God has shown me on here. He's shown me that people go home and they watch TV. People go home and they don't study their Bibles. People go home and they do all kinds of other things other than understand what God's word says. And so this is not important to them. The reason for most people going to church on Sabbath is because they're trying to save themselves. They're trying to get salvation. And that's why. It really is. I know the preacher will say, well, you better pray before you go home tonight because you don't know, you could die on the way home tonight. And who's it about? Saving yourself. And Jesus said, whosoever will save his life will lose his life. Take up your cross, deny yourself. Go and look what Jesus has here, and he has so much more to offer. But anyways, in regards to this prophecy, it says, I will proceed to do a marvelous work among this people, a marvelous work and wonder, for the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their prudence shall be hid. When you go to the book of Daniel, in Daniel chapter 12, right at the end of that chapter, talking about the sealed book, he says this in verse 8, your words are closed and sealed till the time of the end. He says, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Their wisdom's going to perish. But the wise are going to understand the sealed book. They're going to be able to explain this book. And that's what's going to happen in this time that we're living in right now. So this is what I'm sharing with you. We want to be strong in this. We want to be like, and I'm going to share something else right now from the book of 2 Peter chapter 1. Very important for us to keep in mind, okay? 2 Peter chapter 1, it says, I will not be negligent to put you always in remembrance of these things, though you know them and be established in present truth. Now, some people, they'll say, oh, I've already heard the 2,300 days, and that's good enough for me, right? If you hear it once, it's good to hear it twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, until you're established in present truth. And not only even if you're established in present truth, even though you know these things, it's good to hear it again. It's good to hear it until it's in your memory and you can explain it just from your memory. Verse 13 says, I think it meet, as long as I'm in this tabernacle, to stir you up by putting you in remembrance. Put this in your memory. He says in verse 15, moreover, I will endeavor that you may be able always after my decease to have these things in your remembrance. And so this is something that God would have you not just know, not just be able to explain, but have it in your memory. He wants you to be able to memorize these things and to be able to give these things out. I understand it's good for us to give the Bible studies out and stuff like that and hand out the different Bible studies, but we should be established in present truth. That's what God's calling for. And some people will say, well, you know what? The Pharisees knew it all. I heard these arguments sometimes and stuff like that. And so that was, knowing knowledge isn't everything, right? And stuff. And they make excuses for themselves. And that is a big one right there. It's a big one that I hear a lot. But the Pharisees, they didn't understand. And their wisdom was foolishness. It was not like that. And God had true men of understanding. Jesus was a man of understanding. Of course he was. And he could explain these things and give a good, clear answer when they were wrong. He could discern when they were wrong. And that's why a lot of times preachers are preaching sometimes there's not a lot of discernment, because you know what? None of the preachers in the pulpit right now, almost at length, almost all of them are disagreeing on something. And there's a reason. It's because we're not studying enough. There's not enough study going on in the pulpit of most of the preachers. Now I'll add myself to that situation, even though, I do believe that God has given me much light, but I understand that there needs to be more study. We need to be established in present truth and not have these things in our memory where we know them, where we don't have to, if we want to preach the 70 weeks or the Whore of Babylon or the mark of the beast, we should be able to just open our Bibles and just go like this to somebody and say, here it is right here. Here's the mark of the beast. You want to see it? Let me show you it. I'll show you it from the Bible. I don't even need a quote from the papacy. That's the way that we should be. We want to have these things in our minds. Anyways, I want to go to the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 8. Regarding the vision, we talked about the vision last week. This was vision. A vision appeared to Daniel, and it says he saw in the vision, and it came to pass, he was in Shushan, that he saw a vision, and in the vision he saw a ram with 2 horns. And we know that was Medo-Persia. We studied this last week. We see it in verse 20. And then in verse 21, it talks about the other one, the goat that came up in the vision. And then right after that, there was a little horn who came against the saints, cast them down, stamped upon them. And where is it? The little horn, exceeding great, waxed great even to the host of heaven, cast some of the stars to the ground, which I believe are the people of God. He magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily was taken away. The place of his sanctuary was cast down. Now this is the vision. And it says that a host was given him against the daily. And we talked about a lot of this last week, the army that was given to him. And I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? So he asked a question here, how long is this vision going to take? And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days. And the word there we learned was evenings and mornings. And so you get down to the end of this chapter, and just keep this in mind. It says the vision of the evening and morning, which is told is true. Wherefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. So this is the vision of the evening and morning, 2,300 days. Has to do with the ram, the he-goat, and the rest of it. Now, we looked at this a little bit last week, and let me just go right here. We're going to look at this a little bit again. This is the sanctuary. We talked about Jesus going in the most holy place, and this was what was symbolized by the cleansing of the sanctuary. You can read about this in Leviticus 16. Leviticus 16, it says that the priest went in there, sprinkled the blood once a year because of the uncleanness of the people. And that was your Day of Atonement. That was the Day of Atonement, Day of Judgment, Hour of Judgment. And we connected all that last week. If you haven't seen last week's message, very important to watch that one. And hopefully you do take a look at that and get a very, very deep understanding. We went over all these points here. And these points have to do with the judgment hour, Revelation chapter 14, and how it all connected. We connected all that together last week. Again, Daniel 8, where men will stand before the judgment seat. Christ is your mediator. And that's what the devil tried to take out of the way, the daily. We talked about the daily. And we also talked about the Day of Atonement, where the priest went in once a year into the most holy place, and he was your mediator, and God was your judge, and underneath the holy seat was the 10 commandments, which was what you're going to be judged by in the book of the law. Now, in the vision, there was 2 kingdoms, Medo-Persia and then the Greece, and then, of course, out of Greece came the papacy, or Rome. We went over all this in the vision. Ram was Medo-Persia, and then Greece at 331 BC would have been the he-goat, and then the little horn Rome 168 BC onward, that'd be Rome. Judgment hour, Revelation 14:7, and so that's the prophecy of the 2,300 days, and all this would take place during the prophecy of the 2,300 days. So it has the start and the time of the Medo-Persian Empire. And last week we talked about when this prophecy started. We're going to go into Daniel 9 here in a second. But the understanding of this prophecy, when Daniel got down to it, he said, regarding the vision, I, Daniel, fainted with 6 certain days, and afterward I rose up and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but did not understand it. And last week we talked about what happened to him. He fell asleep. He couldn't stay awake during the explanation of the vision when Gabriel was trying to make him understand the vision. Gabriel gave him some of the part of the understanding of the vision, but there was still more to give him. So you get into Daniel 9, and there's verse 1 to 20. And in 20, he says, while I was confessing and speaking and praying, confessing my sin. That's what this is, the prayer of Daniel. The sin of my people Israel, presenting my supplication before the Lord my God for the holy mountain of my God. While I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening offering. And he informed me and talked to me and said, O Daniel, I am now come forth to give thee skill and understanding. And what we learned last week was what was the understanding that he was going to give him. What understanding did Daniel need to understand from the previous vision? Anybody remember? Understand how to begin the 2300 days, correct? So verse 23 said, at the beginning of thy supplications, the commandment came forth, I'm now come to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved. Therefore understand and consider the vision. So this is how we understand the vision. Now just to remind you of what Isaiah said in Isaiah 29, let's just go back here and remember this, okay? Remember, their wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their prudent men shall be hid. Regarding visions, we are told the wise shall understand. But when we ask somebody to explain this vision today, the vision of all has become to you as the words of a book that is sealed. I pray and hope not. Okay, guys? I pray and hope not. I pray that you can explain how to understand this vision in Daniel, because Gabriel came to give him understanding of the vision. And so in verse 24, he says, 70 weeks are determined upon your people and your holy city. And what is 70 weeks? Well, the word here for determined is the Hebrew word for cut off. It means it's cut off of something. 70 weeks is 490 days. 2,300 evenings and mornings is 2,300 days. So 490 days was cut off of the previous vision, which he came to make him understand. He said, I come now to give you wisdom and understanding. I'm coming to give you the understanding of the prophecy that you didn't understand before, is what he's saying. And so he says to finish transgression, to make an end to sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity. Now I want to go over some of these points a little bit more in his prayer shortly. I'm going to go back in this chapter. We're going to look at the beginning of the chapter. So you want to understand what sins, what iniquity, what did they do, But it says to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Verse 25 says, know therefore, and what's the word there? Understand. Now, here's the understanding, Daniel. Here's the understanding of the previous vision that you didn't understand when I was with you before and I was trying to explain it to you before. So now, as it says in verse 20, verse 21 and 20, it says, Gabriel, whom we'd seen in the vision at the beginning, right? The vision before, Daniel 8, he informed me and talked with me and said, I'm now come to give you understanding, because you did none understand it. Daniel 8, end of chapter. So now, know therefore and understand that from the going forth commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem to the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times. So there's a certain amount of time here, 7 weeks, 49 days, 62 weeks, which would be 434 days. So we have 49 plus 434, that's 483 days. And so that's 483 days till the Messiah the Prince. That's what it says. But we understand prophecy to be a day for a year. Find that in Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 6, and Numbers 14:34, where it talks about day for year for prophecy. So it says, after 62 weeks would the Messiah be cut off. Now, we had this judgment hour message here. I'm just going to share with you, okay? What we have on this chart here, we have the 457 date. That would be the start of the prophecy. 457. 70 weeks are cut off for Daniel and his people in this vision. And 69 of those weeks would lead up to, if it'll show it, and it's not 27 AD. There should be a 27 AD there. It's not there. But anyways, in regards to this week here, it starts at 457. Now, I want to go into the Bible. We're going to look at how this prophecy starts. We're going to go to the book of Ezra, chapter 7. And it's a decree that goes forth. I can get to it. Artaxerxes, right here in verse 12. It says, Artaxerxes, king of kings, unto Ezra the priest, a scribe of the law of the God of heaven, perfect peace at such a time. And he says, I make a decree that all the people of Israel and all his priests and Levites in my realm, which are minded of their free will to go up to Jerusalem, go with thee. For as much as thou art sent of the king and of his 7 counselors to inquire concerning Judah and Jerusalem, according to the law of thy God. Now, we go over this vision, this decree, but in this decree, he is restoring the government of Jerusalem to itself. So basically, they were given power to recreate their government, to start sacrificial system. And what did the sacrificial system include? It included the law of God, right? So that meant that the law of God was going to be the law of the land in Israel. And so therefore they had their own government, because when you have a law, you need a government. So this was the restoration of the government in Israel. And that's what this decree was about, giving government back to Israel. The king is the one who ruled over the entire nation. He had control of all this, and he says, I'm going to restore that government to itself. In other words, they were going to be restored as Israel's government. So this is the restoration or the decree that's mentioned in Daniel chapter 9, verse 24, where it says, verse 25, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem to the Messiah the Prince. So this is the one to restore and build Jerusalem. They started building again shortly after, but restoring the government was here. This is where it was. Some people say, well, there was later decrees and stuff like that. No, this is the one that gives the power to the government. And I know some people like to muddy the waters and try to say, no, that's not 70 weeks where it starts or anything like that. But this actual decree happened 483 years before Jesus was baptized and started his earthly ministry, which is 69 weeks in Bible prophecy. So that brings you right down to the Messiah, the Prince, in his ministry. And that would be 7 weeks and 62 weeks, 69 weeks, 483 years, which was a perfect day for year prophecy given to Daniel the prophet. And so that's the understanding of this prophecy. But this prophecy, remember, was cut off of something, because it says in verse 24, 70 weeks are cut off. And they were cut off of the 2300 days. So when you're looking at this chart here, you see the 70 weeks starts in 457, and Daniel is getting the understanding of when to start. Of when to start the 2300 days. And so that's what gives him the start period for that vision, the previous vision, which he none understood. Know therefore and understand the evening and morning vision, that from the going forth of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. And so verse 26 says, after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, which would have been after in the 70th week he'd be cut off, which is crucified. Now for himself, the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. Now, for most people, a lot of people would say this week here is actually referring to a 7-year tribulation in the future, and it comes at the end of the world. Some of you might be familiar with things like Left Behind and other things like that. All those movies are based on this verse here. But they move this 70th week like a rubber band into the future, and it doesn't end with the 69th week. 69, 70, instead it goes 69, and then hundreds and hundreds of weeks, and then 70th week. It doesn't make sense, but that's the basis of all these false prophecies that you hear about. The 7-year tribulation, not Bible prophecy. There's no 7-year tribulation in Bible prophecy, right? But this is where it comes from. It's where it comes from. So, and then they say it's a false Messiah, counterfeit Messiah, right? Some of them say he's going to make a decree in the middle of the 7-year tribulation, and they're going to make a peace treaty and everything like that. This is all based on a misunderstanding. But this is really talking about Christ. It says in verse 27, he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. You actually look at the words here, with many. Well, you can look this up. It's actually right here, Matthew 26:28. It says, this is the blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. That's how he made sacrifice and offerings cease, was through his sacrifice, right? And some people would say, well, all the days that sacrifices were done on ceased with that. Well, that would include, when you go back into your Bibles, that would include every day, because evenings and mornings, you've got your Sabbath days, your weekly days where you'd offer 2 lambs. If it's just if you're doing away with the sacrifices, and then you're going to say, oh well, all the days associated with it, you got to do away with the Sabbath too. Then of course your new moons, beginning of the months, rams and lambs, right? And then the Passover, and then of course the Sabbaths of the feasts. They're listed with the feast, not with the Sabbath. They're not, 7 days, and it tells you what to offer for sacrifices on all these days. All these days have their own sacrifices. Some people would say that we do away with the sacrifices, but regarding these things, this is what Paul the Apostle spoke, 1 Corinthians chapter 5. Regarding the sacrificial system, he said this. He said, Christ our Passover sacrifice for us, therefore let us keep the feast. And so when it comes down to the sacrificial system, if Paul was ever to say, we're not supposed to keep the feast anymore, this would have been his perfect opportunity, right? But he didn't say that. He didn't say, let us not keep the feast. And he said the opposite. But anyways, a lot of misunderstandings. People are not reading the Bible carefully. That's why we have so many divisions in Christianity today. There's so many divisions because people come up with their own interpretations of what the Bible really says. Let's go back to Daniel chapter 9. Daniel 9. And I have a lot that I could share with you guys in regards to this prophecy. There's just so much here. But he confirms the covenant with many for 1 week. In the midst of the week shall he cause the sacrifices and offerings to cease. That was Christ. And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even unto the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Overspreading of abominations. Make it desolate. What happens when there's just too much abominations? Well, I'll explain a little bit. We'll go to the book of Ezekiel. Let's go to the book of Ezekiel for a second. Ezekiel 8 kind of explains a lot of these abominations. It says abominations in the temple. And so it goes over, some of us have shared some of these abominations before and how they're all taking place in the church today. But you've got weeping for Tammuz, you've got sun worship and all these other things. In chapter 9, it says in verse 4 that the Lord said to him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, set a mark on the foreheads of the men that sigh and cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. Now, verse 3 says the glory of the God of Israel was gone up from the cherub. And it's because of the abominations that the Spirit is withdrawn. It's the glory. The Spirit's withdrawn. And the overspreading of abominations is going to cause this. So for the overspreading of abominations, the Spirit of God is not going to be there. And that's why Jesus said at the end, he said, there's so many abominations going on in here. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. You read that in Matthew 23. But I'm going to go back to Daniel 9. So it says, for the overspreading of abominations, you make it desolate, even till the consummation. And that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Implies that there is more to come. It's not just a one-time event. But Daniel 9, I just want to start with, I want to share the prayer of Daniel and just go through a few points in this prayer. Daniel chapter 9, it says, in the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the seed of the Medes, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans. Now here it says the first year of Darius. This would have been the last year of Belteshazzar, which is also the third year of Belteshazzar. So these visions in Daniel 8 and Daniel 9 happened in the same year. Just so you know, one happened before the fall, one happened after the fall. So it was given to God's people to understand this at the time when Babylon fell. That Medo-Persia is going to be the first kingdom, and during this prophecy, Medo-Persia, Greece, then Rome, then furthermore. But the Daniel chapter 2 talks about Babylon. Daniel chapter 7 talks about Babylon. Daniel chapter 8 doesn't make mention of Babylon, but starts with Medo-Persia. And so that's the kingdom that this would start with, and that's what it was in the first year. This was the year that Babylon fell, 538 BC. Or 607 BC, sorry. 538, sorry. Babylon was took Jerusalem in 607. 538 was when Babylon conquered Medo-Persia. Or Medo-Persia conquered Babylon. Sorry. I gotta think before I speak here. But anyways, verse 2. In the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of the years whereof the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. There was a prophecy given in the book of Jeremiah, and you can go and look that up. You can actually find it here in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 25. And it's talking about a prophecy of 70 years that would be given. And Daniel understood that Medo-Persia was taking Babylon after 70 years, and this was the fall of Babylon. And there's a call. After Babylon falls, what is the call? Does anybody know what the words would be? When Babylon falls, because there's no call to come out of Babylon until it falls, okay? And so it's a call to come out of her, my people. And that's what God would have had them do. He would have called them out of Babylon at the end of the 70 years. Medo-Persia was the kingdom that was set up, and then the Persians pointed them back to Jerusalem. So he understood the 70 years of the book of the prophet of Jeremiah. Jeremiah said, we're going into Babylon. 70 years we're going to go in. And he understood it. And that's what happened 70 years later. Now Daniel sees the fall of Babylon, and he says, I now understand what Jeremiah was speaking about, 70 years. So when he looks at it, he's starting to say, well, what about us going back to Judea or Jerusalem? And so he set his face to the Lord God to seek in prayer and supplications with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. Sometimes we need some of that. But it says, I prayed unto the Lord my God and made my confession and said, O Lord, great and dreadful God, keeping the covenant and mercy to them that love him and to them that keep his commandments. Interesting that he's mentioning about keeping commandments. Because what brought them into Babylon? What brought them into Babylon was breaking God's commandments. Listen, I just want to just bring something out just briefly, just a little symbol for you, and I think it's an obvious symbol. It's talking about the priesthood of the priestly colors. We'll go to Exodus 28. It talks about the priest colors, and you'll notice that they're all these colors here. It has gold, blue, purple, and scarlet. Those are the main colors, and you'll see this in several places. Gold, blue, purple, scarlet, all through the chapter. And it's talking about the priestly garments, gold, blue, purple, and scarlet. Well, Revelation chapter 17, when talking about this woman here, carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, having names of blasphemy. But it says, the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and decked with gold, and precious stones and pearls. Now, the priest colors were blue, purple, scarlet, and gold. And she's decked with purple, scarlet, and gold, and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. There's a certain point here that we can notice. Remember, it was the overspreading of abominations that made her desolate. Well, Revelation 17:16 says, the 10 horns which are upon the beast make her desolate. This woman is definitely desolate. Okay? But this is a priesthood. It's a woman's priesthood, because it is a woman, Revelation 17:5. And her name is Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Women's ordination. It's a problem. But that's what people put in power, is the woman. The woman is supposed to be the servant. The church is supposed to be the servant. And instead, they're made the master, made the priest, made the leader. And, about those colors, about the missing blue here, there's a missing blue, right, with the priestly colors. You go to the book of Numbers, chapter 15, and you'll find out that what's missing is really the commandments of God. 15, it says in verse 37, Jehovah spake to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel and bid them that they make fringes in their borders of their garments throughout their generations. They put upon them the fringe of the borders a ribbon of blue. And it shall be unto you a fringe that you look upon it and remember all the commandments of the Lord and do them, that ye seek not after your own heart and your own eyes, which ye use to go a-whoring. Interesting, the whore of Babylon, right? But anyways, how does this connect? Well, what happened to God's people in Daniel's day? Daniel chapter 9, what does Daniel say? He says, I prayed unto my God, made my confession, said, oh God, keeping covenant mercy to them that love him and keep his commandments. Well, that woman is obviously symbol of what a bride, a church, a bride, but the covenant is not there, right? The covenant is with those who keep his commandments. And obviously this woman is someone who is definitely in violation of God's commandments. What does Daniel say? We have sinned and committed iniquity, lawlessness. We've done wickedly. We've rebelled. We've departed from your precepts and your judgments. Some people are nailing the judgments to the cross. Some people are nailing the statutes to the cross. But there's a call to remember these things, because the blue is the symbol of remember. Furthermore, is so to remind you, Malachi chapter 4, right at the end of this, there's a message for God's people. Remember ye the law of Moses my servant, which I commanded him in Horeb for all Israel with the statutes and judgments. And you know what a lot of people are saying? They're saying that the law of Moses is nailed to the cross. And, it's interesting how God always just puts remember before these things so that you don't forget. The blue is there so you remember the commandments of God, right? But a lot of people say, well, the law of Moses is not the law of God. The law of Moses was just the ceremonial aspect of the law. It's not true. It's not true. And it is the law of God. Who gave Moses the law? Where did it come from? Did Moses just come up with the law himself? God's law. It's the law of God. God gave it to Moses to give unto his people. And it includes statutes. It includes the Sabbath. It includes all the laws that God gave to Moses. You can read the book of Deuteronomy. That is the book of the law given to Moses. And it includes the Sabbath in it. But anyways, I'm not going to go into that too much. I just to catch the point, people are calling themselves commandment keepers today. The people of God. And the reality is they're doing the same thing as they did in the apostasy in ancient Israel. They're not keeping God's commandments. Daniel 9, keeping this in mind. Verse 5, we have sinned, we have committed iniquity, we have done wickedly, and have rebelled, even by departing from the precepts and from thy judgments. And this is what I feel sometimes, is we have definitely sinned against our God. Daniel called himself to be corporately accountable with the people and repenting. He's repenting. And sadly, most don't corporately repent with him. Most don't turn from their wicked ways. Like there's men like Conrad Vine who understand we have sinned. We've committed iniquity. We've adopted pharmakia. We've killed babies in our hospitals. We've done a lot of wicked stuff. And Conrad Vine is like, if this happens again, maybe we should worship somewhere else, because we don't want to keep on going down this path. But continuing on, neither have we hearkened unto the servants thy prophets. What happens when the prophets are sent to the people today? Which spake in the name to our kings, our princes, and our fathers, to all the people of the land. What's happening when people are speaking to to our leaders, Ganoon Diop, Ted Wilson, Mark Finley, our kings, our princes, our leaders, our fathers, whatever we want to call them, our conference presidents, prime ministers, whatever they are. What's happening at these times when the prophets are coming and speaking to them and telling them, repent? Well, they're putting them in their graves. They're just going to bury them like they did to the other prophets. Jesus said, Daniel 9:7, O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us confusion of faces, as at this day to the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and unto all Israel that are near, and that are far off. Do we have the wisdom? Do we have the understanding? Or are we still in Babylon? Through all the countries whither thou hast driven them, because of their trespass that they have trespassed against thee. Now all this was written in the law. Remember, when you read about these things, you can read about these things in the book of Deuteronomy. I'm going to go to Deuteronomy, actually. Is it the best one? I'm looking for chapter 30, but it doesn't have it listed there. 32 verse 4. We'll go to Deuteronomy 30. What does it say here? But come to pass when these things come upon thee, the blessing, the curse, which I have set before thee, thou shalt call them to mind among the nations whither the Lord thy God has driven thee. Now, blessed are they that do his commandments. Cursed are they that continue not in all things written in the book of the law to do them. Right? So when they come into the other nations, what were they to do? Call them to mind. What's another word for calling something to mind? Calling something to mind. We've kind of said that word a few times earlier. Calling something to mind. Bring it back to my memory, right? So when we get into the other nations, when we're in America and Canada and all these other nations, what does God want us to call to mind? He wants us to call the book of the law to our minds. The blessings, the curses that are written in it. Cursed is he that doesn't continue in all things written in the book of the law to do them. Why are we cursed? Why are we driven out of the nations? Because we didn't keep his commandments. Verse 2 says, shall return to the Lord thy God, obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day. If you do this in the land, whether in America or whatever. Now, what did he command them this day? How many times is that written in the book of Deuteronomy? If you read the book of Deuteronomy, you know that this is written several times. All that I command thee this day. Right? It's all through the book. That was basically given in one day to the Israelites. And so when we're spread abroad, we should call to mind everything written in the book of Deuteronomy. Thou and your children with all thy heart, with all thy soul. That when then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God scattered thee. He's going to gather thee. Where is he going to gather us to? Well, I believe that there's a promised land that he wants to bring us. And that might be part of this promise right here. But the promise includes if we turn back to him and keep his commandments, to remember his commandments. Verse 4 says, if any of thine be driven out of the utmost parts of heaven, from thence will I, the Lord God, gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And Jehovah God will bring thee into the land thy fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. And Jehovah thy God will circumcise thine heart, the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind. So I could go over these curses. They're all written in Deuteronomy 26, Deuteronomy 27, etc. It would say that if you were to break God's law, you would be scattered into different lands such as Babylon. And these nations would come and capture you. And so that's what happens. Confusion of faces, all the countries whither thou hast driven them. It's all fulfillment of Bible prophecy. That's what happened in Daniel's day. What happened in Jesus' day, shortly after, in the disciples' day. And then it's what's happened today. Many of God's people are scattered, not just throughout all nations, but I would say that they are scattered throughout all denominations. They're scattered throughout all denominations. Denominationalism. And a lot of people are attached to their denominations. They're not going to understand the call. And what do you think the call is going to be from all these countries? There's going to be a call, come out of her, my people. And it's a spiritual call, obviously, but it's a call to understand that you are children of Jerusalem, the mother of us all. Yeah, Jerusalem, the mother of us all, is ultimately the true church. Babylon is the mother of harlots, fallen church with her denominations. And so Daniel continues, O Lord, to us belongs confusion of face, to our kings, to our princes, to our fathers, because we have sinned against thee. To Jehovah thy God belong mercies and forgivenesses, though we have rebelled against him. God is a good God who loves mercy, and that's what his people should love as well. We should always love to have mercy. We're waiting for mercy, man. When I was talking to Ivor Myers the other day, I was like, it's like we love you, and God willing, I know the people want to have mercy. His people are merciful. His people are merciful. His true people, anyway. But I understand some people hold grudges still. Grudges are definitely not from God. If you hold grudges, you don't love your neighbors yourself. Read Leviticus 18, verse 19. But Daniel 9:10. Neither have we obeyed the voice of the Lord our God to walk in his laws, which he set before us by his servants the prophets. All Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey his voice. So you can see the words walk in his laws, which he set before his servants the prophets. Walk in his laws. Now, if we were to look at that and just look at the words walk in, it's all written in the book of Deuteronomy. I'm not going to do a search on that, but I'll just give you a quick walk. I'll just give you a quick walk in my law or no. Walk in the manner of the nations, walk in their ordinances, walk in my statutes, keep my commands, do them, walk in the ways of the Lord. You can find several verses, walk in his ways, keep his commandments, right? Several verses on these things, well, how God would want us to walk. And then, of course, it even goes into the New Testament later on, such as chapters like Ephesians, chapter 2, which I wanted to show you just briefly. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God hath before ordained that we should walk in. God has some ordinances that we should walk in. And he wants us to walk in those things today. The same things that he ordained of old, it says, before he ordained of old. And it's the same thing that he wanted us to walk in back here in the book of Deuteronomy, what God commanded thee to walk in. So there's nothing new under the sun. It's the same old, same old. And so Daniel's talking about, we haven't obeyed the voice of the Lord our God to us. What do you think we've done today? Well, most people would say that book is nailed to the cross. It's done away with. But we're still the commandment-keeping people of God, right? That's what's being told to most of the people in the churches. But there's some big big surprises coming when we get to the judgment. Because we're going to be judged by that book of the law. And that book of the law is basically an explanation and definition of the Ten Commandments. It is an explanation and definition. That's what Ellen White says. It's just explaining and defining the Ten Commandments. Daniel 9:11, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice. Therefore the curse is poured upon us, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, because we have sinned against him. I just want to talk about something just briefly. The curse that is written in the law of Moses came upon us because we failed to walk in his laws. Just briefly, how can we know that the law of Moses and the law of God are the same law? Well, let's go to, I'll show you a couple verses. I'll show you a couple places that you can know for sure that they're the same law. Luke 2, talking about the birth of Jesus, and they went to present him before the Lord for the days of purification, according to the law of Moses, days of purification. And then it says, as it is written in the law of the Lord, every male that openeth the womb. And you notice something here. There's some words that are being interchanged. The law of the Lord, talking about presenting Jesus for purification. It's also called the law of Moses, interchangeable law, right? Interchangeable words, I should say. And to offer a sacrifice according to that which is in the law of the Lord. Now, some will say, oh, well, the sacrifices are the law of Moses. What's that one? What's that verse say there? Does that verse say that the sacrifices are just the law of Moses? Clearly not. It's saying that the sacrifices are the law of the Lord. So then the ceremonial aspect of the law is not just the law of Moses, is it? No, it's the law of the Lord. Because the law of the Lord includes, and which is the law of Moses, includes both ceremonial and moral law. So anyways, talks about a pair of turtle doves, a pair of young pigeons, and behold, there was a man in Jerusalem. I'm going to move on from that point. I want to go to Deuteronomy 4 for a second. Let's go to Deuteronomy 4. And there's another place that I could show you as well. But Deuteronomy 4, when you get down to the end of this chapter here, it talks about, let's go down a little bit more. It talks about Moses, and he severed 3 cities, and then it says introduction to the law. So this is where it starts right here, Deuteronomy 4:44, okay? This is the law which Moses set before the children of Israel. Now, who set this law before the children of Israel? Moses. And it says, these are the testimonies, the statutes, judgments, which Moses spake to the children of Israel after they came forth out of Egypt. Now, let's just go down a little bit and to the next chapter, and we'll see what it is. Here's the start. What does it start with? What's it start with for the law of Moses? It's the 10 commandments, right? So it says, Moses called all Israel and set before them the law. This is the law which Moses set before them. Moses called all Israel and said unto them, hear, O Israel, the statutes and the judgments which I speak in your ears this day, that you may learn them, keep them, and do them. And then it says, talking about the covenant, the Lord made not this covenant with our fathers, but he says, I am the Lord thy God, which took you out of the land of Egypt. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Is that the law of Moses? Thou shalt not make any graven image. Is that the law of Moses? Is that not? Of course it is, right? It's the law of Moses. The very first parts of the law of Moses are the 10 commandments. You see? So this is the law which Moses set before them. But then, of course, it goes into statutes, chapter 6. Now, these are the commandments, statutes, and judgments which God will teach you. You might do them in the land you possess. Are we going to go possess a land? How about this one? Let's just go down here a little bit. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Some of us might say, well, that's the first and great commandment. Should we remember this one? Or is this one okay to forget? Is this one nailed to the cross, right? Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy might. This isn't in the 10 commandments. This is one of the first statutes that's given. These words which are commanded this day. These statutes are given to explain the commandments. Because if we didn't know, the first commandment was have no other gods before us, we might think the Lord our God is 3 lords or something, right? We might be mistaken in defining who our God is. The definition, that's what the statutes are for, to define these things. Thank God that we have the definition of these things. Now let me just go to chapter 8 for a second. I want to just read you this. It's what God says. He suffered thee to hunger and fed thee with manna, which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man does not live by bread only, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. Now, is this the law of Moses right here? Oh, I'm asking lots of questions today. And yeah, I'm a little tired too. Probably that's why everybody else left or something. But anyways, it's okay. How does God speak to us? By his word, right? Now, what is his word? Is his word Deuteronomy 8, verse 2? Or 8, verse 3? Yes, of course. By every word should we live, right? What about Deuteronomy 8:2? What about Deuteronomy 8:1? Should we live by that word? What about all of the context of these words? Yeah, Jesus quoted all these verses he quoted when tempted by the devil. This is how he overcame. This is how he overcame temptation. What about us? Because I know Ellen White says that Jesus had the book of Deuteronomy memorized. It was in his mind. So I'd say that maybe it might be an important book for us today. But what does our church teach today about this book? What does our church teach? What's the common teaching regarding this book today? Does anybody know? What is the average teaching of this book today in the church? General Conference, Seventh-day Adventist Church, for the most part. Yeah, Jonathan's got it. That it's nailed to the cross. Exactly. Exactly. That's the common teaching. Jesus had this book memorized. We should have this book memorized. We should have this book in our memories, or should be studying it to put it in our memories. And it's nailed to the cross and done away with. Why is the devil so at war with this thing? I wonder why. I wonder why. Jesus quoted it every time he's tempted by the devil. You think the devil wants you to know it? The devil don't want you to know it. Because you might be able to quote it like Jesus quoted it when he was tempted. And if you did, you might overcome your sins. And the devil doesn't want you to overcome your sins. So, of course, the devil's got this teaching in the average church today that says this book was nailed to the cross. See? The discernment is lacking, but we're lacking discernment. We're not able to catch these things. And the devil, he knows how to get us. And he just has us nail the whole thing to the cross. And then you go talk to somebody about the law of Moses, they'll say, oh no, that's done away with. We don't keep the law of Moses anymore. It's done away with. It's all over with. They don't even know what they're talking about because they haven't studied. They're not studied. To say stuff like that, you are not studied. And I know that many people are in the pulpit right now and they're all teaching these things, and some of us go listen to them. But I'm going to tell you something. They don't know what they're talking about. And you're listening to them. And the reason you're listening to them is because, for the most part, you don't know either. And that's no offense, but it's a call. It's a call to repent, get to know. It is written, thou shalt live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. We need to know the truth. The truth is what makes us free. And some people say, well, we don't need that much knowledge. Knowledge puffs up. Knowledge is, be careful. This is eternal life, that you might know the only true God and Jesus Christ, whom thou hast sent. Without this knowledge, you will die. You will perish in your sins. But what if you think God's going to burn people for eternity in hell? Is that real knowledge of God? What if you think God's going to he's changing his whole covenant from dispensation to dispensation, his whole rules and laws? He can't even make up his mind. And that's how you see your God. Is that a good knowledge of God? If your God is doing that, you're looking at your God and you're saying, wow, God, you know what? You can't even make up your mind. I don't know if I should trust you. I mean, you had these people keeping all these laws back then. What a burden that would have been to live in that time. You know, you're kind of a burdensome God. I mean, like to them at least. At least you're nicer to us. Thank you, Jesus. I'm glad we don't have to keep your laws anymore. That's the way that most people in the Christian world live. And I'm thankful that I'm saved by grace and not by law keeping. I don't want to keep your law. Law keeping is against my character. I can't stop sinning. So thank you for saving me by grace. That's the testimony of most in the church today, guys. That is the testimony of most in the church today. You get down to it, and that's what you're going to get to. That's what you're going to get to. And it's all, yeah, it's really sad. But it is the reality. And the reason that it is that is because we've been deceived. Like, I'm just talking about this. Every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God, book of Deuteronomy, just think about that. We got to say Deuteronomy 9, Deuteronomy 10, Deuteronomy 11, all these chapters here. Cursed be he that continues not in all things written in the book of the law to do them. And all the people were to say amen. But now it's like, oh, no. It's a curse to even try to keep the law. You don't even try. If you break one, you break them all. We're guilty of all. So we're not going to keep, you know what, we can't do it. So we don't even, that's against us. What's against you is breaking God's law. It's going to be against you in the judgment when you stand before God and God has the book of the law open and you're going to look at that law and he's going to go, did you sin? Did you break this one? Yes. Did you repent of it? No. And God, you just judged yourself. You're lost. Anyways, let me keep on going here. I'm going to go back to Daniel 9. We're going to finish the study here. Daniel 9. Lots of thoughts to think about here, because there is a repentance that we as God's people need to have, okay? But here's where we were, verse 11. All that is written in the oath, in the law of Moses, the servant of God, because we sinned against him. And he hath confirmed his words, which he spake against us. You know, there's a lot of things in the law that's against you, right? Which is against us. Took it out of the way, nailing it to his cross. But what was against us? It was the curse for breaking the law. It wasn't, there's a blessing. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they might have right to the tree of life. But I'm not going to go more into that. I hope that you guys got a point here with regards to that already. But against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil, in front of the whole heaven has not been done as has been done upon Jerusalem. Yeah, those judgments were against us. And without repentance and without walking in his law, without the power of the grace of God to do it, we are going to be standing before the judgment seat of God, and that law is going to speak against us. It says, as it is written in the law of Moses, all this evil has come upon us, yet made we not our prayer before the Lord our God, that we might turn from our iniquities and understand thy truth. So what's he saying? Is he saying we haven't prayed, we haven't done what God has called us to do? And I think that this is something that as people today, as we as people, God's people today, should really consider and really accept and really do. That we should make our prayer before the Lord our God, that we should turn from our iniquities and from our lawlessness to understand God's truth, as it is written in the law of Moses, which is against us if we break it, guys. It's against us. Doesn't matter if we, some people think he took what was against us out of the way. He took the curse out of the way that was against us in the law of Moses. It's only against us when we break it. Because if you look at, let me just show you something just briefly. I'm going to go to the book of Deuteronomy, okay? Deuteronomy chapter 4. Come down here. I hope I'm going to the right chapter. It's got to be chapter 5. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, so it talks about these judgments that are given, testimonies that are given. This is the law which you set before the children of Israel. Go chapter 5. It's got to be 5. We'll get down here. As for these, stand thou before me. I speak all these commandments, these statutes, these judgments. Thou shalt teach them, that they may do them in the land. It says that it may be well, right here, verse 33. Okay, ye shall walk in all the ways which the Lord your God hath commanded you, that you may live, and that it may be well with you, that you may be prolong your days in the land which ye shall possess. Now, is that for you if you do them, or is that against you if you do them? Okay, you understand? It's all for you if you do them. But if you don't do them, it's against you. That's how we have to read the book of Deuteronomy. He only takes what was against us, which is the curse, or the death penalty. He nails that to the cross, because Jesus was nailed to the cross to take that for us. But when you receive the grace of God, let's just say you received grace from a police officer. He let you off for speeding over 100 miles an hour in a 50 zone or something like that. And the police officer lets you go. Is it all right now for you to continue to drive 100 miles an hour or when you repent and he gives you grace, do you now walk in the grace and do the speed limit? It's obvious that you're not going to go and break the law and say, oh, sorry, police officer, we just can't keep your laws. They're impossible. Your laws are just too brutal. Imagine we're speaking this against God. We're speaking this with our lips against God. That we're saying, oh, God's law is too hard to keep. That's what a lot of testimonies are, that we can't keep God's law. That's a lot of testimonies that are in the church right now. It's just a sad thing. And we're in trouble. We're going to stand before God. And we're going to be like, God, your law was too hard. Your law was you're a hard taskmaster, God. You really are. You really just, you made it too hard. And then you try to tell us to keep your commandments. How many people are going to have that testimony at the judgment? I hear those testimonies all the time that we can't keep God's law. It's impossible. Imagine God's commanding you to keep his law, and then he just sits back and he says, look, they're actually trying. See that, Jesus? Is that what God does? Do you really think that of your God? Because if you think that of your God, then what do you really think of God? Do you love him? Or do you think he's just playing a prank on you? Do you think he's just commanding you to do things? Do you see, if you behold a God like that, you become changed in the same image. It's important to know God, really know God in Jesus Christ whom he sent. It's important to know him in his proper light. Otherwise, you'll be sitting back looking at God like, wow, you just put all this on me. You're telling me to keep all these statutes and stuff like that. And, you know, you can't even make up your mind if you want those people to keep their statutes. And, things that are going to come into people's hearts and minds that are going to be really hard turned towards God. Like, how could you make the people do that? And I've seen some ministers. I seen a minister one time who just said, God, I'm so thankful that you did not create me in that time dispensation of Moses. And I'm so glad I'm in the dispensation of grace and I don't have to keep any of those statutes or laws that you have, because they were just, I could never do it. And I know nobody ever did it. And that was, can you imagine just saying a prayer like that or talking like that to God? How many people are going to stand in the judgment speaking those, and they're going to be like, you know what? We think you were too hard. And God's mercy, which was shown through Jesus Christ, who kept the law in our fleshly bodies. You know, if you deny he came in the flesh, because that's what a lot of people are doing. They're saying, oh, Jesus, that was Jesus. That's another one. That's denying Christ came in the flesh. You're like making it out like he had some kind of special superpowers. He was just like you. He was made in all points like his brethren. And he gives you the power to do the same thing. Anyways, these things, and I know I'm sharing some of these things and some of these thoughts, and I'm hoping that you guys are catching them, because you have to discern them. The devil's coming with these arguments, and I hear them a lot. God, just give us understanding, please. God, just give us understanding as your people. Let's go back to Daniel chapter 9 here. We're going to try to close this out. Daniel 9. So, anyways, what does Daniel say? Now, O Lord, thou hast brought thy people forth out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand, and has gotten thy renown. As is this day we have sinned, we have done wickedly. O Lord, according to all thy righteousness, I beseech thee, let thine anger, thy fury be turned away from thy city, Jerusalem, thy holy mountain, because of our sins and for our iniquities of our fathers, Jerusalem and thy people are become a reproach to all that are about us. Here's the call, come out over my people, come out of Babylon. Now therefore, O our God, hear the prayer of thy servant and his supplications, and cause thy face to shine upon thy sanctuary that is desolate, for Jehovah's sake. O my God, incline thine ear and hear, open thine eyes and behold our desolations, and the city which is called by thy name. For we do not present our supplications before thee for our righteousness, but for thy great mercies. Thank God that Daniel really saw these things. This is a beautiful prayer. And this should be our prayer right now in this time. It should be our prayer. O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, hearken and do. Defer not for thine own sake, O my God, for thy city and thy people that are called by thy name. And there's a call to come out of Babylon. There's a call to a higher city right now. And we have to understand this same thing, that there's a call to recognize that we are children of the mother of us all, to Jerusalem, the mother of us all, the church of the firstborn, written in heaven, Hebrews 12, 22 to 24. Understand that we are the remnant of her seed, but it's only by this process of birth that we become part of this organization. And for tomorrow, guys, I'm going to be sharing on a new organization, because there are some major misunderstandings on that as well, and also what God's organization is. And so you don't want to miss tomorrow's lesson. And pray for me. Sorry, I was a little tired tonight, but I'm here and I made it. And we got through this study, and I pray that you guys are learning a lot. And may God just give us grace in these times, and also strength to endure. And I know I need it, and I know each one of us is going to need it in these last days. There's just so much that the devil wants. He wants to fog our minds. He does want to make us tired so that we don't discern, so that we don't understand. And he also doesn't want us to know the truth. in regards to God and his character and his law, which is being defamed by a lot of ministers. And I'm not naming names right now, but I will say most ministers are defaming God's name when they say the law of Moses nailed to the cross. You are speaking and misrepresenting God's character on a large part. And you don't know. I understand most people don't know. They don't see. And when you don't see this, you're not going to see God's true grace, God's real graceful character. It's going to keep people back from really seeing God and who he really is. But anyways, guys, I'm going to pray if we can. Let's just close our eyes. Father in heaven, we just want to thank you, Father, for being with us today. We ask you, Father, to guide us into more truth. We want to know more truth because you said the truth would make us free. And sometimes, Father, there's just a lack of understanding that's keeping us from really getting free. In all thy getting, get understanding, you told us. Father, we want to understand, we want to know, we want your wisdom. And Father, I pray for each one here that they can truly be of that remnant that can truly explain these things to the people in these last days. And I know many people are in the dark right now about these things. I pray for them. I pray have mercy on them. I also pray for each one here. Father, I know that some people are just learning these things, coming into these things. And I pray, Father, that these things become their study right now, that they realize, wow, these things are really amazing. I want to know more about this. You are a good God and a gracious God and a kind God, and there's truth that we need to know. And Father, I know sometimes it can be alarming. Sometimes it can be fearful. Sometimes we need something to kickstart us, something to get us going in the right direction and eventually being brought into an understanding of your great grace for us. And I pray, Father, that all here would find grace in your sight. And I pray that in Jesus' name, and thank you. Amen. All right, guys. So, anyways, yeah, happy Sabbath to all. Just so you know, please, if you haven't, try to make arrangements to be at the camp next month. We're going to have a camp meeting next month. It's starting on October 17th. It's going to continue to October 27th. I'm getting the schedule ready right now. There's going to be a lot of speakers. There's going to be a lot of Bible studies, a lot of things that we're really going to delve into. But the reality is the idea of what we need to do is get into the Word and get to know our God. Really, it's about knowing our God. And especially in this last time is running out. I know that time is getting shorter and shorter. And some of God's people in this time are going to learn the message in a few months. They're going to know the message in a few months. And I know some are coming into this and they're fearful. They really see, well, we're close to judgment. Time is running out. I want to know the truth. I don't want this, wishy-washy, cheap grace gospel. It's false. It's obviously false. A lot of people can see it. And come out of them, my people. There's a call to really stand in this last day with Jesus. And the only way we can stand is by true grace. And I will not say nothing bad about grace because grace is amazing, amazing grace. And the only way that we can truly overcome sin is through the power that's in that grace. Recognizing Christ crucified, recognizing Christ died for our sin. And that gospel is the power of God and the salvation. The cross is the power of God and the salvation. Anyways, yeah, Sister Marlene, go ahead, sister. I'm going to just shut down the live stream. But you can go ahead, sister.
Thank you, Brother Doug.